While I was stuck in a hospital bed with a broken leg after a horrific car crash, my boyfriend went out partying with his ex and posted photos captioned, "Finally free from the needy drama queen and her constant demands." After 4 years together, I stayed silent. But this morning, my phone was blowing up with his apologies, and his mom begging me not to throw it all away. My involvement with Richard spans just over 4 years, a journey resembling those where the guide abandons you midway up the mountain, leaving you to realize you've been burdened with everyone's packs the entire time. That particular kind of experience. We initially connected during a community garden restoration initiative sponsored by my company. I was assigned to the compost team, and Richard, the team leader, humorously dubbed himself the Compost King. Despite this initial red flag, I found his enthusiasm for decaying produce somewhat charming. He had this elaborate discourse about how decomposition is merely the preliminary phase for constructing something beautiful, and my naive, plant-loving heart resonated with this metaphor. Fast forward 4 years, and I now recognize that the only thing being broken down was my self-respect. Allow me to elaborate. Richard had contributed to rent precisely 7 times in 4 years. My name alone appears on the lease because his credit is, as he says, temporarily damaged. For 4 years, he has been between jobs approximately 60% of our time together. When he does acquire funds, they are allocated to his gaming, setup, his apparel, or social outings with his male companions. He requested to borrow my car more frequently than he inquired about my day. Yet, I was romantically attached, so I created justifications for his behavior. He was discovering himself and possessed potential, all that typical rationale we employ when involved with an immature individual. Last week, I was involved in a rather severe automobile collision. An irresponsible driver disregarded a red light and struck my vehicle perpendicularly. I sustained a fractured leg, 3 fractured ribs, and a concussion. The medical professional stated I was fortunate it wasn't more serious, but frankly, it felt quite dreadful. Richard visited me in the hospital once, for 20 minutes. He claimed hospitals induce anxiety in him, and he needed to process this trauma in his own manner. The trauma that occurred to me. Not to make it about myself, of course, but I was the one with metal pins in my leg. My closest friend, Anastasia, remained with me, even sleeping in that uncomfortable hospital chair for 3 nights. She assisted me with restroom visits, brought me actual food, and even washed my hair in that small sink because I couldn't shower. That is genuine friendship, as people say. So there I was, under the influence of pain medication, when Anastasia exhibited a peculiar expression while looking at her phone. I inquired about the issue, and she attempted to feign normalcy, but I could discern something was amiss. I took her phone, a rude action, I admit, but pain medication can heighten my assertiveness, humorously. And what did I see? Richard at a social gathering, his arm around his former girlfriend Katie. The caption, "Finally liberated from the demanding drama queen and her incessant requests." I simply froze. 4 years. 4 entire years of my life supporting this man. Emotionally, financially, enduring his finding himself phases, his gaming obsession, his inability to properly clean a toilet, and this is what he posts when I am literally confined to a hospital bed with injuries. The most distressing part was observing all the comments from our mutual acquaintances, stating things like, "Glad you're content, brother," and "You merit better." Where were the individuals remarking, "Hey, isn't your girlfriend currently hospitalized?" I did not leave a comment. I did not send a text message. I did not call. I simply processed the information. And as I processed, I recalled something very important. My name is the only one on the lease. So I made some calls. I contacted my landlord. I contacted my brother. I contacted my cousin, and I formulated a plan. Fast forward to yesterday. Richard had returned to the apartment a few times while I was staying with Anastasia during my recuperation, but he had no idea what was coming. My brother and 2 of his colleagues assisted me in executing phase 1 of my plan. We carefully collected every single one of Richard's belongings, every soiled sock, every limited edition collectible figure, every gaming console and special edition controller, his cherished collection of craft beers, his autographed baseball cards, everything. And we deposited it all into the refuse container behind our apartment complex. Not the recycling bin, but the general refuse container. The self-proclaimed compost king can now decompose with his waste where he rightfully belongs. This might appear harsh, but here's the context. Richard had not paid rent in 3 months. The landlord had been issuing notices, which I had been concealing from him because I was embarrassed that my partner was unable to contribute. I had been accepting additional freelance work to cover his portion, while he claimed to be networking for opportunities. Here's where it becomes even more compelling. Do you know what Richard was doing instead of visiting me in the hospital? He was interviewing for a position that my connections helped him secure, a position he was scheduled to commence next week. Was scheduled. Let's just say that the hiring manager is my former college roommate's sibling, and he received some very interesting information about Richard's financial history and dependability, along with screenshots of those social media posts about being finally liberated from his demanding girlfriend who was hospitalized. This morning, my phone began to buzz excessively. Text message after text message from Richard. Where are my possessions? Are you being serious right now? You can't do this to me. Everything I own was in that apartment. My collector's items are worth thousands. You're going to pay for this. And then the tone shifted. Darling, please. I'm sorry. I was just intoxicated and foolish. Katie means nothing to me. I was just coping with the stress. Please call me back. I love you so much. We can resolve this. You're the only one I desire. But the most remarkable messages, those originated from his mother. Richard's mother has consistently treated me as if I were fortunate to be in a relationship with her precious son. She telephoned me, weeping, stating I needed to reconsider my actions, that her son made a mistake but does not deserve to have his life ruined. She mentioned he had informed her about the other thing I did, the employment situation, and that I was being vindictive and cruel. And you know what? Perhaps I am. But 4 years of supporting someone who couldn't even be bothered to visit me more than once in the hospital, who publicly celebrated being free from me while I was learning how to use crutches. The lease renewal is approaching next month. I am not renewing. I am moving in with Anastasia until I locate a new residence. A fresh start with furniture that does not carry memories of Richard gaming on it while I cooked, cleaned, and managed the bills. I have no regrets about my actions, not a single one. No, I am not concerned about legal repercussions. My cousin, who is a lawyer, confirmed that since his name is not on the lease and he has not financially contributed, he has very limited recourse. Additionally, I possess documentation of everything. Yes, I am recuperating well, 6 more weeks in this cast, but the ribs are already feeling better. For those inquiring why I endured the situation for so long, attachment can sometimes lead to poor judgment. He wasn't consistently unpleasant, and the positive moments led me to believe the negative ones were merely temporary. A familiar pattern. I know. I will provide an update tomorrow with more of the fallout. His mother has now telephoned me 17 times and left voicemails ranging from tearful to threatening. Richard apparently appeared at the apartment, and the landlord denied him entry. I might have changed the locks beforehand. Wow, I honestly did not anticipate my last post to garner so much attention. Thank you everyone for your support and kind words, and the legal advice. Much appreciated. As promised, here's what has transpired since my last update. So, remember how I mentioned Richard's mother telephoned me 17 times? Well, that number has now escalated to 43. 43 calls in less than 36 hours. I finally answered call number 44 because I determined it would never cease otherwise. Allow me to illustrate this phone call for you. Me, propped up in Anastasia's guest bed, my fractured leg elevated on 3 pillows, indulging in sour cream and onion chips. Stress eating is my preferred method of coping. While Richard's mother, Deborah, alternated between sobbing, guilt-tripping, and thinly veiled threats for 28 minutes. Here is a summary of the key points. Richard has been crying for 2 days straight. I've never seen him like this. Amusing. I cried for 2 days straight when I awoke in the hospital and he was not present. But proceed, I suppose. Do you comprehend the value of those collectibles? His grandfather bequeathed some of those baseball cards to him. Do you comprehend? The cost of rent, Deborah? Because I do, down to the exact penny, for 4 years. He was planning to propose, you know. He showed me the ring. Unless the ring was composed of unpaid bills and broken promises, I highly doubt it. We could initiate legal action for destruction of property. My lawyer cousin already confirmed they cannot, but all right. When she stated, Richard conveyed everything to me about how you've been manipulating his finances and isolating him from his friends and family, I literally laughed so hard I nearly dislodged a suture. Me, controlling his finances? The individual who once expended our grocery money on a limited edition gaming keyboard. The individual who borrowed $3,000 from me for a business opportunity that proved to be cryptocurrency. The individual who has not voluntarily displayed his bank account to me in 3 years, and isolating him from friends and family. I organized his birthday celebrations. I purchased his mother's Christmas presents. I drove him to family gatherings when his car was repossessed. But here's where it becomes truly intriguing. I did not immediately terminate the call with Deborah, though believe me, I desired to. Instead, I posed a simple question. Deborah, when was the last time Richard paid rent? She fell silent for a moment, then responded, He informed me you two had an arrangement where you managed the household bills, and he covered other expenses. What other expenses precisely? I inquired. More silence. Then, well, I am not privy to your financial arrangements. So I explained to her, in detail, exactly what Richard had contributed financially over the past 4 years. I recounted the $17,000 in credit card debt I accrued covering his half of expenses. I recounted working overtime and weekends while he played video games and networked. I recounted how I had to sell my grandmother's jewelry last year to cover rent when Richard assured me he had money incoming that never materialized. You could practically hear her perception of reality fracturing through the phone. But he said he's been supporting you, she finally stated. He said you lost your job and he's been financially carrying you. I lost my job? I have held the same position for 6 years with 2 promotions. Meanwhile, Richard has held 7 jobs in 4 years, the longest lasting approximately 3 months. I did not articulate any of this, however. Instead, I simply informed her I would email her copies of bank statements, rent receipts, and text messages that would clarify the situation. I also mentioned the social media posts he made while I was hospitalized, which she claimed to know nothing about. The call concluded with her stating she needed to speak with Richard and would contact me again. She has not telephoned since. It is peculiar how that works. Now, allow me to elaborate on precisely how the extensive refuse disposal transpired, as many of you requested details. Obviously, I could not physically transport all his belongings myself with my fractured leg. My brother Dylan is genuinely my hero. He brought 2 of his colleagues over on their day off. I compensated them, of course, because some individuals comprehend the concept of paying for services rendered, unlike Richard. We commenced with his prized possessions, his gaming setup, 3 monitors, a custom PC he acquired for $2,800 while between jobs, his collector figurines still in their original packaging because they'll be worth more that way, his autographed sports memorabilia that he prohibited me from displaying because it wouldn't match the decor he never paid for, his craft beer collection, some bottles dating back to our first year together that he was aging, but truly just forgetting about. It required 4 hours to pack everything, 4 hours of discovering random socks beneath the couch, unearthing half-eaten bags of chips in the bedside table, and finding receipts for purchases I never knew about. It was akin to an archaeological excavation into the existence of an immature individual. When Dylan lifted Richard's throne, yes, he referred to his gaming chair as his throne, and carried it ceremoniously to the refuse container as if he were disposing of a cursed relic, we did not deliberately damage anything. We did not cut up his clothes or smash his electronics. We merely relocated them to their appropriate dwelling among the other waste. I did retain 1 box of potentially important items, his birth certificate, social security card, a few family photographs, and a folder of medical records. Those are with the landlord, who is completely on my side after I showed him the social media posts and explained the situation. He even assisted me in changing the locks. Speaking of the landlord, he informed me Richard appeared twice yesterday, demanding to be granted entry. The second time, he threatened to contact the police, but mysteriously vanished when the landlord responded. Excellent idea. Let's call them together and explain how you haven't paid rent in months. It's curious how certain individuals scatter. When exposed, is it not? Now, regarding the other thing I did. Recall how I mentioned Richard was commencing a new job? A job my professional network helped him secure? It is with a financial services company. He would have been managing client accounts and financial planning. The issue: Richard cannot even manage his own finances. This is an individual who once overdrew his account purchasing a video game, then overdrew it again the next day acquiring another video game because he forgot about the initial overdraft. So I contacted my friend's brother and simply shared some concerning information. Screenshots of Richard's social media posts, which were unprofessional, his rental payment history, which was non-existent, and some select text messages where he boasted about manipulating the system to evade paying bills. Was this petty? Perhaps. But consider this. Would you desire someone handling your retirement account who cannot even remember to pay his electricity bill? I did not lie. I did not exaggerate. I simply provided factual information about his character and financial responsibility. What they chose to do with that information was their decision. Spoiler alert, they rescinded the job offer. Which brings us to today's developments. Richard has advanced from angry texts to sorrowful emails. Long, sorrowful emails about how he's been reflecting and comprehends his mistakes and wishes to rectify matters. He claims the posts with Katie were merely for appearance and that they are just friends, and he was acting out because he was afraid of losing me after the accident. According to these emails, he is a transformed individual. He has acknowledged the error of his ways. He is prepared to commit and contribute and be a genuine partner. It only required a car accident that nearly ended my life. 4 years of financial exploitation, public humiliation on social media, losing all his possessions, having his job offer withdrawn, being exposed to his mother. What a bargain price for personal development. Richard's college roommate Remy contacted me. Apparently, Richard has been staying on Remy's couch and weeping frequently while also planning to win me back. Remy wished to warn me that Richard has been discussing some grand gesture to demonstrate his affection. I thanked Remy for the heads up and asked him to inform me if Richard mentions anything concerning. Remy agreed and also apologized for not recognizing the type of individual Richard truly was. It turns out Richard owes Remy money as well. I am astonished. Truly astonished, I tell you. I am honestly just exhausted, physically from the accident, emotionally from all this turmoil. But I am also experiencing something I haven't felt in a long time. Lightness. It's as if I've been burdened by a heavy backpack for years, and suddenly it's gone. My shoulders literally feel less burdened. Tomorrow, I have a follow-up appointment for my leg, and then Anastasia and I are going apartment hunting online. My lease concludes in 30 days, and I cannot wait to commence anew. Thank you for listening to this extensive update. I will post again if anything significant occurs, especially if Richard attempts his grand gesture. Based on his past behavior, it will either be wildly inappropriate, surprisingly inexpensive, or somehow manage to make everything about him, possibly all three. Several individuals inquired about my car. It was deemed a total loss in the accident. Insurance is covering it, but I am still awaiting the payout. For now, I am relying on Anastasia and ride-sharing applications for transportation. For those concerned about Richard physically confronting me, do not worry. My apartment building has security cameras. Anastasia's building has a doorman, and Richard is, above all else, a timid individual. He speaks boldly, but falters under any genuine confrontation. Hello again, my internet community interested in retribution. Your correspondent is back with another update, and oh, the drama continues to unfold. Prepare your snacks, refresh your beverages, and settle in because this narrative contains more complications than a garden hose. My humor regarding plants, I cannot help myself. First, a medical update, as some of you kindly inquired. My follow-up appointment progressed positively. The physician states my leg is healing satisfactorily, and I might have this substantial cast removed in 4 weeks instead of 6. My ribs still ache when I laugh too vigorously, which has presented a challenge given recent events. Now for The compelling information you're all here for. The grand gesture has materialized, and it was precisely as predictable, underwhelming, and self-centered as I anticipated. Yesterday afternoon, I was at Anastasia's residence, browse apartment listings, when her doorman telephoned upstairs. Apparently, there was a delivery for me. We were not expecting anything, so Anastasia descended to investigate. Recall, my fractured leg and stairs are my adversaries. She returned 5 minutes later with the most peculiar expression on her face and, prepare yourselves, a compost bin. A literal plastic container filled with soil, worms, and what appeared to be kitchen scraps. On top was a handwritten note that read, "Like compost, our bond can break down and reassemble into something stronger. I'm decomposing my former self to become the man you merit. Please grant us another opportunity to cultivate together." I cannot invent this. The Compost King truly believed that likening our relationship to decaying food would win me back. The presumption, the delusion, the absolute insensitivity of it all. Anastasia and I laughed so hard I had to take additional pain medication for my ribs. She even captured a photograph of me looking utterly bewildered beside this container of dirt and posted it to her Instagram with a caption, "When your closest friend's former partner believes worms are the path to a woman's affection." She tagged me, but thankfully, not him. But wait, there's more. Inside the compost, yes, he placed items within the actual decomposing material, was a small velvet box containing a ring. A ring covered in compost. It wasn't even an attractive ring. It was clearly costume jewelry. The diamond was plastic, and the gold was already discoloring my skin simply from holding it. There was also a date engraved inside. 04/22/19, for bum. Context: that is the birth date of his previous girlfriend. He literally presented me with a recycled ring that he probably acquired for Katie and never gave her. A recycled ring in a compost bin. The symbolism is far too on the nose. I sent him a single sentence. The compost bin is precisely where our relationship belongs, breaking down among the worms and waste. His response was a torrent of texts explaining that the ring was merely temporary until he could afford a genuine one, and that the date was actually when he first realized he loved me. I did not respond further, but Anastasia, my champion, transported the compost bin to the refuse container behind her building and sent him a video of her emptying it. Now recall how I mentioned I sent those receipts and financial records to Richard's mother, Deborah. Well, she finally responded to me as promised. Her initial message was a novel-length email that traversed the 5 stages of grief in real time. Denial. There must be some mistake with these records. Richard told me he was contributing financially. Anger. How dare you make my son appear like this? You've clearly manipulated these statements. Bargaining. If there were financial issues, why didn't you come to me? I could have helped you. Both work something out. Depression. I'm heartbroken to think my son would behave this way. I raised him better than this. Acceptance. I owe you an apology. I had no idea what was really happening, and I'm deeply sorry for my role in enabling his behavior. That final part astounded me profoundly. An actual apology from my son is perfect, Williams. Mark this day in the annals of history. She followed up with a phone call, just one this time, not 43, where she disclosed some enlightening information. Richard has been informing his entire family that he was financially supporting me for years. He told them I was unstable and incapable of maintaining employment. He claimed the apartment was actually his, and he generously allowed me to reside there. He told them the vehicle that was totaled was his car that he permitted me to borrow. He has been borrowing money from his family members for years, asserting it was to assist with my spending problem. The layers of deception, the elaborate fiction this man has been crafting. He could have utilized these creative writing skills to earn actual money instead of defrauding his partner and family. Deborah was clearly embarrassed and distressed. She revealed that she'd given Richard over $15,000 in the past 2 years for emergencies that she now realizes were fabricated. She apologized repeatedly for her earlier messages and stated she needed time to process everything. I actually felt sympathy for her. She's been manipulated by her son just as much as I was, possibly more. I told her I didn't blame her, and that Richard is very persuasive when he desires to be. The conversation concluded with her uttering something that sent shivers down my spine. I love my son, but he needs to face consequences for once in his life. I won't be bailing him out this time. Progress, people. Actual progress. Now for the significant revelation many of you have been curious about. What was the other thing I did besides the employment situation and the refuse disposal? Well, recall those credit cards I mentioned, the ones where I accumulated $17,000 in debt covering Richard's expenses. It turns out 3 of them were joint accounts that he opened using my information to build his credit, but never made payments on. I've been collaborating with my bank and a financial advisor to separate these accounts and document which charges were his. It's a lengthy process, but I've managed to demonstrate that approximately $11,000 of that debt is directly attributable to purchases he made. I didn't just send this information to his potential employer. I also sent it to his parents, his brother, and our mutual friends with a simple note. If Richard asks to borrow money or move in with you, this is what you can expect. Is this petty? Perhaps. But it's also truthful, and truth is a potent disinfectant for the kind of toxic relationships Richard creates. Even Katie, the former girlfriend from the social media post, messaged me on Instagram. I had no idea you, were in the hospital. Richard told me you two broke up months ago. I'm so sorry. Months ago? We were literally living together until my accident. The fiction this man generates. I responded politely to Katie, assuring her I didn't blame her. She revealed that Richard had been messaging her for weeks before the party, claiming we were on a break and that he was ready to move on. She feels terrible and offered to send me screenshots of their conversations. I declined the screenshots, no need to inflict further suffering upon myself, but thanked her for her honesty. Richard appeared at Anastasia's building again yesterday evening. The doorman refused to grant him access. He's now receiving a gift basket. So Richard caused a commotion in the lobby, yelling that he just wants to talk and explain everything. The doorman contacted the police, but Richard departed before they arrived. He then proceeded to call me 37 times within a 2-hour period. I did not answer, but he left increasingly desperate voicemails. Please just talk to me. I can explain everything. This is all a misunderstanding. I was going to repay you. You're ruining my life. I have nowhere to go. My mom won't even allow me to stay with her. I'm sleeping in my car. What car? His was repossessed months ago. I might do something desperate if you don't call me back. That last statement concerned me, so I requested a wellness check on him. I had Remy's address. The police reported back that he was fine, merely emotional, and they recommended he seek mental health services. Later, Remy texted me. For your information, Richard is no longer staying here. Discovered he took $200 from my wallet. Changed the locks. Wow, just wow. Even in crisis, this individual cannot refrain from taking what does not belong to him. So, where does this leave us? Richard is apparently couch surfing with increasingly distant acquaintances. His family is not financially assisting him. His friends are abandoning him rapidly. His employment prospects are limited. His belongings are gone. His reputation is in tatters. And me? I am healing, both my leg and my heart. I found a promising apartment across town that is actually less expensive than my current place. Anastasia has been an absolute pillar of support. My family has rallied around me. My job has been incredibly understanding about my recovery. I am still angry. I am still hurt. But mostly I am relieved, as if I've been submerged for 4 years and finally resurfaced for air. The next update will probably be my last, as I am concentrating on moving forward rather than dwelling on the past. But I wish to thank all of you for your support, advice, and humorous comments. This community has been unexpectedly therapeutic during one of the most challenging periods of my existence. Hello for the final time, my internet support system. It has been precisely 1 month since my initial post, and what a month it has been. I promised a final update, so here it is. The conclusion to the saga of Richard, the Compost King, and how your correspondent finally thrived after being buried in his nonsense for 4 years. First, the practical updates. I have relocated. I am officially in my new apartment as of yesterday. It is smaller than my previous residence, but features a small balcony where I have already commenced a container garden. The building has an elevator, crucial for the fractured leg situation, and security cameras, crucial for the former partner situation. My cast is off 2 weeks earlier than anticipated. I am still utilizing a walking boot, and physical therapy is quite demanding. I perspire more in physical therapy than I ever did at the gymnasium, but I can now move around independently, which feels incredible. My car insurance finally dispersed the payout. I acquired a used but dependable vehicle that I have named Freedom, a bit cliché, I know, but I am embracing it. Now, for what you're truly here for, the conclusion of the Richard saga. After my last update, things escalated before they finally reached a resolution. Richard's desperation attained new heights when he realized his customary tactics, weeping, begging, guilt-tripping, were ineffective. He attempted a new approach, public shaming. He established an online fundraising campaign titled Homeless After Girlfriend's Revenge, where he fabricated an entirely fictional narrative about how I stole his money and discarded family heirlooms after a minor disagreement. He included photographs of himself looking sorrowful on what was clearly Remy's couch, before Remy expelled him and claimed he needed $5,000 to regain stability. The fundraiser persisted for exactly 6 hours before it was removed. Why? Because Anastasia, my brother Dylan, and at least a dozen of our mutual friends reported it for fraud. Additionally, several individuals commented with links to my forum posts, which I had never shared with Richard. Witnessing his public deception exposed apparently triggered something in Richard. He appeared at my former apartment building. Thankfully, I was already staying at Anastasia's and created enough of a disturbance that the police were summoned. According to my former neighbors, he was yelling about defamation and falsehoods and demanding to be granted entry to retrieve his belongings. When the police arrived, Richard attempted to convince them that he resided there and I had unlawfully locked him out. This backfired spectacularly when the landlord confirmed Richard was not on the lease. Richard was unable to produce any mail or identification with that address. Multiple neighbors testified they knew I lived there alone. The police checked his identification and discovered he had an outstanding warrant for unpaid traffic tickets. Yes, my friends, Richard was arrested, not for the commotion he was causing, but for the $200 in unpaid tickets he had accumulated over the past 2 years. Tickets I had no idea existed because he'd been concealing the mail. He spent 2 nights in jail before his brother, not his mother, interestingly, posted his bail. According to mutual friends, this experience was apparently the necessary wake-up call for Richard. He has since moved in with his brother, who is requiring him to pay rent, commenced working at his brother's company, and ceased contacting me entirely. That last point is the most significant development. After weeks of constant calls, texts, emails, and dramatic gestures, the silence was sudden and absolute. No more 3 a.m. voicemails. No more essay-length emails about how he's transformed. No more compost-based metaphors about our relationship. At first, I was suspicious. Was this some new tactic? Was he planning something more substantial? But, according to his brother, who unexpectedly contacted me to check on me, Richard is genuinely striving to improve his life, and a part of that process involves leaving the past behind. Translation: his therapist probably advised him to stop harassing me. And that brings me to the most crucial update, my mental and emotional state. I've been seeing a therapist of my own, thanks to workplace insurance, and we've been examining some difficult truths. I remained with Richard not solely because I felt affection for him, but because rectifying his problems provided me with purpose and identity. I overlooked warning signs because I was afraid of being alone. I enabled his behavior by consistently rescuing him. I valued myself so little that I believed his meager expressions of affection were all I deserved. These realizations have not been easy to confront. There were sessions where I wept until my ribs ached anew. But acknowledging these patterns is the initial step towards breaking them. As for Richard's mother, Deborah, we had one final conversation that provided unexpected closure. She invited me to lunch at a restaurant with ramp access for my leg, a thoughtfulness Richard never demonstrated, and we had a surprisingly honest discussion. She apologized again for not recognizing what was happening and for raising a son, who considered it acceptable to treat partners in such a manner. She revealed that Richard's father had similar patterns before their divorce, and she worried she had normalized financial irresponsibility and emotional manipulation. I found myself comforting her, which was a peculiar role reversal, but it was also therapeutic to witness that she genuinely cared and was taking steps to cease enabling Richard. At the conclusion of lunch, she presented me with an envelope containing $2,000 in cash. "This doesn't begin to cover what he owes you," she stated, "but it's what I can do right now." I initially declined, but she insisted, "This isn't from Richard. This is from me, because I failed as a mother if I raised someone who would treat you this way." I accepted the money and used it to furnish my new apartment, a fresh start without any lingering reminders of Richard's presence.